prime time on a Monday night. I hope everybody's week got off to a great start. I hope you're excited to start the work week with us here on the A to Z Sports Digital Network. Very exciting stuff today for A to Z Sports, the strategic partnership with 104.5 The Zone, but that's not what you're here to talk about. Maybe we'll spend some time on that later in the show. For now, we're going to talk about the regular season and the NFL, the way that it's expanding, and why the players feel some type of way about it. You will hear from some of the players, former players in the league who have taken up against this measure. You'll hear from Titans general manager Jon Robinson because there was trades made in the first-round draft order on Friday that we have not yet addressed, and we'll talk about how it affects the local professional football team. Urban Meyer versus Mike Vrabel is something that we're going to be keeping a close eye on in the division. And so we have that to talk about because there was something in Peter King's Football Morning in America column from Urban that brought this to my attention. We're going to have a fun show for sure here on A to Z Sports Prime Time. Buckeye DK says, is this guy even a Titans fan? No, Buckeye. I'm a Titans reporter. I'm paid to cover your team. It's not my job to be a fanboy. That's your job, which is fine. I'm just paid to be objective media member. If it's your first time here, welcome to the show. We like to see new people. Buckeye DK, it's the first time I've seen him comment, but hell no, I'm not a Titans fan. I'm a paid sports broadcast professional, and I'm going to give it to you straight here on the Primetime Show. Before we get going, though, we need to share this show. I like seeing new people like Buckeye DK. I like when you guys share this show on Facebook Live, Periscope, YouTube, and Twitch TV. If you view with us on Periscope, like so many of our good friends do, like Nicholas Carr, you can retweet the show in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen on Periscope. Get your Twitter people involved, your Periscope people involved between, while we're watching college basketball games together. If you view with us on Facebook Live, you can share now to public. That's how we pop up in your Facebook friends feeds. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Twitch, I see Hal from YouTube. I see King Nat 666 as well. If you're on YouTube, let the people know that we're streaming live here on A to Z Sports Prime Time. And now that more of you are here, we can begin the show officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Monday. I'm your host, Buck Rising from the DraftKings Sportsbook Studios, and I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the fine folks at Two Rivers Ford. That is where you go for the best car buying experience in Middle Tennessee. Not even just in Middle Tennessee. I would say across the country, nobody is doing it the way that Two Rivers Ford is. No pressure through the car search or the car buying process at Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. You need to be betting on these college basketball games while there are still college basketball games to be bet. Houston just knocked off Oregon State. If you picked the Oregon State game or the Oregon State team in that game and they'd have won, you'd have made $100 just by putting $1 down on DraftKings Sportsbook using the promo code A to Z Sports. I'll tell you more about that later. Gary Ashton RE/MAX and the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage at GaryAshton.com. That is where you go for your dream address without the stress. The official real estate agent of the Titans, the Preds, and Primetime. And, of course, Brymac Mechanical for satisfaction guaranteed on each and every one of your HVAC needs. BRYMAK, Brymac.com. Okay, so the NFL has not yet made it official. Thought it was mid-state, Buck. Says Dylan Goodstill. I mean, there's so many. I appreciate some of you who cross over between the radio show on 104.5 The Zone and the Primetime Show and the 615 Sessions podcast because we got enough platforms for the people. But yeah, I got some heat today because I say mid-state and Middle Tennessee. Like I thought those things were interchangeable, but some guys named Billy Bob or some bullshit on in my Twitter mentions was chirping at me. Shout out to Dylan for calling him out. Anyway, we are going to talk about what is not yet official, but is expected to be made official this week, and that's a 17-game season for the NFL, a regular season with 17 games. They are removing one preseason games. So there will be 3 preseason games, 17 NFL regular season games, 18 weeks of the NFL regular season. Just start a little earlier. It'll end about the same time as it normally does, and everybody's going to get more football in their lives, right? Well, players have been not only on social media, but to people like me talking about what this means for them. They are collectively bargained into this. They have a players association who is responsible for representing them on this side of things, but not everybody feels properly represented. And so that's what we're here to talk about tonight, why players are leaning towards not being interested in this 17th game, even though it does mean ultimately more money for them. So from your perspective, as a fan of the NFL, as a fan of the National Football League, are you in favor or are you against another regular season game in the NFL? Now, that may seem like an obvious answer, but I saw some people today on the radio show, or at least on Twitter while I was doing the radio show, pushing back on the idea that a 17-game regular season would mean more and a better product in the NFL, or just more, watered down football. Let me know on Facebook Live, Periscope, YouTube, and Twitch TV. That is how we will interact in the comments section. While you guys give your Two Rivers Ford take, I'll remind you that you need to be going out to Two Rivers Ford because they operate with honesty and integrity. That is what they do so well out there in Mount Juliet. For nearly 40 years here in Middle Tennessee or Mid-State or whatever the hell you want to call it, Two Rivers Ford, John Barker, his family, they've been here. They've been doing business to an exceptional quality, to the kind of quality that you expect when it comes from good customer service, or where it relates to good customer service. Their non-commissioned sales staff does not put any pressure on you to buy a car when you go out to visit them. They're making a paycheck regardless of whether you buy a car from them or not. That's why non-commissioned sales staff is the way to go. That's why you need to go out to Mount Juliet and pay our friends at Two Rivers Ford a visit, or go through the entire car purchasing process online at tworiversford.com. Your Two Rivers Ford take. Are you in favor or are you against 17 regular season games in the NFL? That's the Two Rivers Ford take that we are posing to you. Karen O'Keefe on Facebook is in favor. Stephen Crozio on YouTube says in favor. I think we do need another week of football. Lewis Chesney is also down. Anthony Hill. Brian Bowman on Facebook is saying he is in for the extra football. Evan C. White says, I'm inclined to side with the players typically, especially here. I'm here for it, says Jeff Roberts. Hate preseason games. I want more meaningful football. Well, so that's the question. How much more meaningful is the football going to be? Are you going to see a bunch of dudes that you don't see during the regular season? Are you going to see more guys rested in week 18? That point to kind of, keep bodies whole heading into the postseason? I'm not sure how they're going to make sure that competitive advantage remains. Ultimately, I'm sure the last game of the season will remain a divisional game. That's worked really, really well for the implications to keep interest throughout the course of the regular season. So teams are less likely to rest their good players heading into the postseason, and some of them don't necessarily have the postseason locked up by that point. But yeah, you would hope that it would be more meaningful. Juicebox is one of the few voices I have seen against. 16 games is the way God intended. 17 games equals Lil Nas X, man. You see he's getting sued by Nike, Lil Nas X. I don't know how many people, I don't know if the Facebook people know about Lil Nas X. I know the Twitter people do. YouTube, I think it's a toss-up, basically. But Lil Nas X with the satanic sneakers that he put out there, dummy shouldn't have left the Nike logo on it, because Nike is pissed and they are suing the maker of Lil Nas X's Satan shoes, which is pretty, you got plenty of free marketing out of it, but now all that money that they made in shoes that were sold, in all likelihood, they're going to have to give Nike back, because Nike is about to sue the living shit out of them. So are you in favor or are you against? There are mixed emotions from the players, because you see Ryan Fitzpatrick voicing his support. You see Alvin Kamara saying shit's dumb, basically, on Twitter. And Dan Orlovsky was on First Take today and asked this question as they were debating it. Listen to what Orlovsky, a former NFL player, former quarterback in the league, has to say on the matter.
Yeah, I think 85% of the players in the NFL will be upset about this because they're the guys that aren't making all the money. 15% of your roster is made up of the kind of the guys that are going to see the growth of salary cap. What this will do will grow the salary cap. And so the highest paid players will receive more money. Those are the guys that are actually going to feel it in their wallet. And the league minimum guys are not going to feel the kind of the growth in revenue. But Stephen A., this is where I'm going to come after you a little bit. You can't say, grow up and tell your feelings to move on. You can't say that to your knees and your ankles and your back and your ACLs. And that's what's going to feel the brunt of this is guys' bodies. You can't say, well, the NBA does load management. One game is in or out of the playoffs for so many teams in the NFL. In the NBA, when you play 82 games, you can load manage a game or two because you're not going to feel it when it comes to actually getting into the dance or not. The Dolphins were 10-6 last year, and they didn't get in. Sitting a quarterback or a big-time defensive lineman or a dynamic wide receiver could be the difference between getting in or getting out. So load management is not something that could factor into the NFL. Now, what is the trade-off for the players? That's the big question of this. Is there going to be, you talked about the one less preseason game. You know who's going to probably play the same amount of preseason snaps? Those league minimum guys. The starters and the high revenue guys are going to play the same amount of snaps, whether it's 4 games or 3 games. Is there going to be a significant change to the offseason? Is there going to be, when I got into the NFL 17 years ago, 16 years ago, we started our offseason like March 20th, and we went all the way to July 4th. Right. That has even shortened. So are they going to do more Zoom? Is there going to be less mandatory minicamps, OTAs? But we can't sit here and say, well, just get over it. You can't tell an ACL to just get over it.
Okay.
You can't tell an ACL to just get over it. That's what Dan Orlovsky is saying. He's saying 85% of the players are not interested. And I asked around this week or after, I guess, today and yesterday after Schefter tweeted out that it was likely to be made official, and that's largely the response that I got. The players aren't interested, even though it means more money for them. Most of them, the guys who are making the money that matters, are not about putting their bodies through the extra strain. It's a luxury that those kind of guys can afford. Now, dudes who are trying to make a roster, dudes who will benefit from more injuries, it's a terrible way to put it, but the more injuries that you have throughout the course of a regular season, the more jobs are likely to come available for guys who are journeymen, who are, on one-year deals, who are bouncing around on practice squads, all of these things. So there's a cost-benefit analysis that goes into it, but the majority of the players are going to be like, nah, I don't want to mess with this. I don't care if it means a couple extra $100,000, which sounds ridiculous to us, but is something that's the way that they think. We'll take more of your comments. Are you in on 17 games, or are you against a 17-game regular season that the NFL has not yet made official, but is planning to make official as soon as this week? We will take more of your comments here in just a second, right after I remind you about Gary Ashton and the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. You want to make sure that when you are investing in real estate, when you are buying your home, if it's your first time like me, if it's a process that you've been through before. If you have been through this process, you know how stressful it can be. That's why you want to know. That's why you want to use people who you trust, why you want to use people who operate with professionalism and make sure that you get every box checked on your list when you're when you're looking to make a substantial investment like a home. And if you are in the market to sell your home, you can sell for more. With all the people who are coming in town, the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage will make sure you find a price that fits your needs. All you got to do is go to GaryAshton.com, courtesy of our friends at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. If we go 10-7 and miss the playoffs, I'll be pissed, says Jesse Norwood. Titans Kyle says, as a fan, I like it, but as an athlete, I get not liking it. More chance for more injury. Why do players that aren't in the players union complain, though? Well, the players are in the union. Before I say this, I don't know if you're mandated. I assume you're mandated to be in the NFLPA or be a member of the NFLPA as soon as you are admitted into the league. I don't think there are any players, and I don't want to speak from a point of ignorance. I don't know this to be so, but I don't think there are any players who operate outside of what the players union negotiates. I don't think I think that's something that's collectively bargained. Again, I don't want to throw out something that may not be true when I don't have the answer, but I can't think of an instance where a player has been operating outside of the confines of a players union. Like independent contracts for those guys would be a mess to try and keep track of. So I don't think that that's something that's possible within the confines of the sport. But I could be wrong, Dom. And if you have information that proves me wrong, or if producer Reed finds something like that and wants to send it to me and make me better at my job, that would be an excellent reflection on producer Reed. But I don't want to send him scurrying because he's busy. Wish it was just 2 preseason games and 18 games, but definitely in favor of more meaningful football. I mean, 18 sounds outrageous, but, so does 17. Throw in the fact that only 2 teams get a playoff bye and the idea of player safety seems ridiculous, says Quez. Well, yeah, it was never about player safety. No, I mean, I think largely, and Quez, that was a 2-parter, because Quez says against can't scream player safety, then tell them to go crash into each other 1 extra time a year. Throw in the fact that only 2 teams get a playoff bye and the idea of player safety seems ridiculous. That's the place where I'm at. Like, I don't even consider the NFL acting in the interest of player safety anymore, because all of their actions tell me that they're not interested in player safety. I mean, for God's sakes, we just played a full 16-game regular season with largely minimal interruptions in the middle of a global pandemic. They said, be damned, we're going to go out there and make as much money as humanly possible. The MMA was out there first and the boldest about it, but the NFL, getting it done the way that they did, they just straight bulldozed their way through. Not every sport can do that. The NFL just did it. The NFL says player safety, but then opts for the thing that makes them more money, which was to play last season, which was to add an additional game, because it leads to bigger TV revenue, it leads to more gate, leads to more concessions, leads to more jersey sales. It's dollars upon dollars upon dollars. I think we all understand this. I don't think that's anything that's breaking. I just, you have to consider what the NFL says and what their actions are telling you that they care about. I hear what Roger Goodell says about player safety. The health and safety of our players. Mike Vrabel says it. Mike Vrabel says it all the time. And John Robinson. The health and safety of our players are at the forefront. And also, John Robinson did a press conference about a month ago saying we need guys who will play through stuff, and a lot of our guys do. But then somebody who didn't necessarily play through stuff last year was Adoree Jackson, and he ended up out on the street. Now he got a raise out of it, but I mean, this is what football does. Like, football is in the business of money. They're not in the business of protecting these guys, really. They're about the business of the health and success of the league. And the health and success of the league demands that there be more inventory, because the only thing we all give a shit about, the vast majority of us give a shit about, is NFL football. It's NFL, it's college, and there's nothing close. Nothing a close third, really, by any stretch of the imagination. There's just nothing that compares. Excuse me while I take a drink. So I'm largely over that idea. Buck, congratulations on letting A to Z ride your coattails, says Steven. Nah, that's not what it is at all. In fact, I have ridden A to Z's coattails to a very successful streaming show, a very successful podcast, very successful, soon to be successful radio show. We'll see. And I'm very happy that, a part of listen, you guys don't see all of the negotiations that went into 2 months of this. And I know I'm sidetracking on a different matter. For those of you who don't know, A to Z Sports and 104.5 The Zone, the radio station that I do my show for, they have started strategic partnerships. Now, Stephen, I know you're just kidding, but I do think it's important to say I'm very excited about that. And the whole reason that I was able to do the radio show in addition to A to Z is because they were putting together this strategic partnership, and to be able to do both of it and to keep both salaries, very nice on my part. So I'm riding A to Z to the top, baby. I got no coattails. I'm going up with them. I was a C student, not going to lie, says Evan C. White. A to Z and 104.5 is like the science relationship that's mutually beneficial. I was a C student, not going to lie. Well, at one, it shows, but we love you, Evan. Anyway, Evan, it's okay. Houston makes it to the Final Four, says Steven. I know, I saw them win tonight. I thought, I didn't think you guys were interested in 2 nights of college basketball, but let's move on to the NFL draft order. We talked about the 17 games. Now it's time to talk about how the trades that were made on Friday, we haven't had a chance to discuss them, how it affects the Tennessee Titans and what they might want to do, given that the tectonic plates of the draft are shifting under their feet. You like how I made that about science, didn't you, Evan? Let me know on Facebook Live, Periscope, YouTube, and Twitch TV in the comment section, how should the Titans change their draft strategy based on the 3 teams who have already made trades? Let me know on Facebook Live, Periscope, YouTube, and Twitch TV. How should the Titans change their draft strategy based on what the Niners, the Eagles, and the Miami Dolphins have done moving around in the first round? Remember, Miami traded back. They gave their pick to the 49ers. Then the Miami Dolphins, there's a bunch of first-round pick swaps, and we can talk about it. We can talk about it at length. But Puka says they are too far back. No change for Donovan. Draft the best available football player. Brian Spivey, all 3 of you on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Periscope on 3 different platforms, 3 different people are saying the same exact thing. They are too far back. Don't change the strategy. And we can talk about that here in a second, right after I remind you about my friends at DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. You need to get in on the action using the promo code A2Z Sports. That's ATOZ Sports in the DraftKings Sportsbook app. That's how you get going with some of the action that's going on in the March Madness tournament. We almost have the Final Four set. By the end of the week, we will know who's going to be playing for a national championship game. You can bet $1 on any tournament game, and if your team wins, you win $100 with the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Just pick any college basketball team that's still in the hunt for your shot at winning $100. All it takes is $1 bet and that team winning their next game. So download the app, use the promo code A to Z Sports when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 if the college basketball team of your choosing pulls off the win. That's code A to Z Sports to turn $1 into $100 for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You must be 21 or older, Tennessee only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and you want help, call or text the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. DraftKings Sportsbook, promo code A2Z Sports. What would you do with the situation? Buck had Houston -8 tonight. I did not have Houston -8 tonight. I bet Oregon State. I screwed it up, Ricky, and you can follow Music City Bets for all of their good betting analysis. I bet Ricky had Houston -8 tonight because I blew it. I went with Oregon State in the DraftKings Sportsbook app. I'm not happy about it at all, but it's okay. You win some, you lose some. And I've won a good deal more than I've lost, thanks to the great deals that they have using the promo code A2Z Sports. They need to go best player available. That's ready now, says Dom Odell. Karen O'Keefe says they shouldn't change anything. So largely you guys are about standing pat. And John Robinson has talked about, because there's a lot of uncertainty in this draft, right? Everybody knows it. You have players that have opted out. You have players who, like Trey Lance, have played 1 game in 400 days. You have a variety of different situations because of what COVID did the last year. And so John Robinson has kind of talked to us about this evaluation process before, and I think it's worth noting because I do think it should change their strategy in the first round, and I'll explain what I mean in a second.
No, that's a great question, Buck. I mean, I think that, it's going to be similar to what we did last year. I mean, this you're trying to develop a relationship and get to know these players over a Wi-Fi connection, which isn't the best way to do it, but it's the hand that we've all been dealt. I think what I have tried and what we've talked about trying to do is being more inclusive with other members of the organization, of the football staff, to have, maybe more people on the call they can read body language. They can look at and listen to these prospects so that we get different opinions on how they're performing, with the questions that we're asking.
So I played that clip for you not just to hear John Robinson tell me, good question, Buck, although it was a good question. In fact, I always think my questions are good, so I will hear that again.
No, that's a great question, Buck. I mean,
I'll stop trolling here on A to Z Sports Primetime from the DraftKings Sportsbook Studios. So here's what I'll say about the draft strategy. I think that there are so many needs for the Tennessee Titans at wide receiver, at corner, at tackle, really across the offensive line, because Ben Jones and Roger Saffold are getting old. You need guys at some point to come in. And all of these things are not going to be fixed in one draft class, right? But you need as many shots at this thing at value, at low cost as you can because of what this year's finances are. So it would be my feeling, understanding that you're going to see the quarterbacks get snapped up early. There's the draft, and like Coach Mack of Titans Radio says all the time, there's the draft and there's the quarterback draft, right? The draft this year starts at 3. And really, it only starts at 3 because we don't know who the 49ers, which quarterback the 49ers are going to take at this point. It's my feeling that there is, depending, again, this depends on how the draft order breaks, right? Because if by some miracle, one of the top corners or one of the best wide receivers in this class makes it to the high 20s or the low teens where you can jump up and go get them, completely advocate for that, of course. But outside of those situations where it looks like a lot of those guys, depending on where the runs start, or it looks like a lot of those guys might go early, I would trade back. I would try to get into the top of the second. I would try and mass produce draft capital this year, given that 22 is not ideal, given that you've addressed your most pressing issues with edge rusher. Wide receiver is not great. It's really A.J. Brown and a bunch of dudes. You don't have a tight end right now, or at least you don't have a tight end. You have a tight end, but you don't have a tight end 1. Anthony Ferkser is not tight end 1, nor should he be. You still need help at offensive tackle because of the Isaiah Wilson implications. You could probably use some help, certainly in the secondary, not just a corner, but you need a safety too. And so all of these things make me think that it is very, very much worth considering getting out of the first round, getting into the top of the second, and trying to take as many swings on guys that you think you can help or can help this football team right away. Given the depth at wide receiver, maybe you are not as deep. There are some corners. We talked to Coach Mack about this. There are some safeties that you can find throughout the course of this draft. There's a lot of guys. There's a lot of good secondary players. Really, the worst position in this draft is interior defensive line. And right now, you don't have to worry about that so much. You have Danico Autry. You have Jeff Simmons, T.R. Tart. You can go back and forth on him. Laurel Murchison. You're okay for the time being. Maybe you add a few more bodies in there from an undrafted rookie free agent standpoint. But I would certainly trade down, get out of the first round, and make sure that I try to satisfy as many needs as humanly possible. What would you do with the Titans draft strategy? Do you think it is affected at all based on the moves that have been made at the top? Unless great cornerback is available, Donald Bell, I totally agree. Titans have too many holes to fill by taking project players from Andrew Frill. Buck is only playing this clip because of how J-Rob said. That's a great question, Buck, says Donovan. You're 100% right. That is totally correct. I am here for all of the praise. Lee Hobbs says, Young Buck, what up, Lee? Good to see you here on a Monday night. There's going to be good players sliding due to these trades we could see. I mean, I don't think there's going to be nothing about what's happening at the top is really going to push the quarterback or really going to push the players that you need back too far. Like, nothing that's happened with these 3 teams is really going to affect the cornerback draft. Nothing that's happened with these 3 teams are going to affect, Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, all of these top prospects. Those things aren't really going to change. Now, you may find yourself with one of the better edge rushers in this class, and maybe that's too good to pass up. Maybe you just want to beat the hell out of quarterbacks next year, and you're going to roll them 3 and 4 deep or I guess 4 and 5 deep off the defensive line and outside linebacker. You could do that, and you could help your team. There are ways to improve. I just don't, excuse me. I just don't think that you need to be so caught up in improving in the first round. You can improve your football team on day 2 and day 3 substantially, and you can have more opportunities to do it if you're not crazy about what you're seeing at 22 or around there. Aaron Brewer is going to take over for Ben Jones after next year, in my opinion. I mean, we've seen him play guard. I've never seen him play center, so I don't know. He was fine at guard, though. They really liked his effort and his ability. He's so small. I mean, small by offensive line standards. Here on A to Z Sports Prime Time, I want to eat a Dorian. I want to smear Clowney. Get Clowney back ASAP, says SM Doug. I don't even know what that means. Trade down, says Jackson A. White. I feel sorry for MIA for drafting Tua. If Farley falls, he's talking about the cornerback from Virginia Tech, to 22, do they take him? They were at the pro day. I know he had a back procedure, a discectomy, I believe is what it's called. And so I would say that you need impact players. Now, right now, your secondary could theoretically be set. You need a third safety, really. And Kevin Johnson as your nickel corner does not excite me. I don't know if you are excited about that. But Farley has a ton of injury red flags, in my opinion, says Ronnie Snead. Yeah, back procedure, no matter how minimal or invasive it is, back stuff scares me. Especially, it didn't remind me because it's Caleb Farley, right? Caleb Farley is the corner from Virginia Tech. Now, if I remember correctly, didn't Caleb Farley opt out of this last season? He opted out because of deep concerns about staying healthy amid the coronavirus pandemic. He's having a back procedure after he didn't play a full season of football. He has had injury issues in the past. ACL's a routine. I'm not caught up in an ACL. Coach Mack said he's one of the most talented, if not the most talented player at the position. There's high risk, high reward. I don't know if the Titans are in a position like if he's there at 22 or if he's there in the second round and you have 2 third rounders this year and you say, okay, we're going to take a swing on it. We will gamble a little bit. And, they'll trust their medical staff. If there's anything on the medicals that pops up for them that says, no way in hell, then they won't do it. But there are reasons to be concerned. Now, there were plenty of reasons to be concerned by Jeffrey Simmons and what Mike Vrabel wanted Jeffrey Simmons the entire time, no matter how that draft fell. That was their guy. Okay. And so they went out and got their guy, and that made the Titans defense better without question. Austin Clay says it worked with Simmons. Yeah, 100%. And Simmons' issues, ACL is one thing. The beating of a woman when he was as young as he was, understanding, but it took some convincing for me to think that Jeff Simmons had really turned a corner on that stuff and that he was worth taking a chance on that way. I wouldn't have run the highlight package the ESPN did right after the pick was made of him just pounding on this lady. But it can, if you trust the medicals, if you trust the players, or if you trust the people giving you the scouting report from the universities, i.e. Isaiah Wilson, you have to be very, very careful with this stuff. I think Coach Mack did say Farley opted out. Yes, he did opt out. We're going to win now. We're a win now team. We need to fill holes quickly, ESPN trash coverage for draft night. I like a lot of the people that work at ESPN. A lot of those people are my friends. So, I don't think that was a great choice, that package that they ran when he was selected. I think Von Miller should hold a seminar on how to treat women. Jesus. No, Evan, we're not, this is a conversation that I didn't think we were going to go down. We have this Urban versus Vrabel topic. I honestly, guys, we've talked for almost 45 minutes about these two topics. And I think this Urban Vrabel thing is worth hanging around. Plus, it's already 9:00. You want to watch college basketball tonight. And I want to watch college basketball tonight. So I think we'll table it. And maybe we'll talk about it on the radio show tomorrow. But before we get out of here, I will tell you about our friends at Brymac Mechanical. Satisfaction guaranteed on each and every one of your HVAC needs. They will hook you up, put you in your comfort zone, make sure that you are feeling well, living right as the seasons begin to change. Brymac.com is where you go. Tell Chris Hamby A to Z Sports sent you. A to Z Sports and Brymac Mechanical. It's a beautiful partnership, just like the one that we announced earlier today with 104.5 The Zone. So what I will say on the Urban versus Vrabel stuff, we'll talk about what Urban Meyer said to Peter King in his Football Morning of America column. It's going to be a rivalry to watch between Urban and Vrabel twice a year, certainly, given their history together, their backgrounds, given who they are, two big-ass alpha dogs in the same division and with a history of wanting to just compete at the highest level. Urban Meyer versus Mike Vrabel is going to be something to talk about. I think we might just be able to get a full show out of that one. So stick around. We'll have a lot more Vols, Titans talk throughout the course of the week. The radio show will be a lot of fun tomorrow. We have Alex Doherty because the Preds have won 5 straight, which is crazy. We'll talk about the Nashville Predators tomorrow on the radio show, 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone, and Ben Fisher of Sports Business Journal to talk about the implications of the new NFL media deal and of the implications from a business standpoint of the 17-game regular season. We will get to all of that tomorrow, 104.5 for The Zone from 10 to 1. If you're not subscribed, rated, and reviewed to Buck Rising on 104.5 The Zone, that's the name of my show. So you can go check that podcast out, rate it, review it, love it, subscribe to it, tell your friends about it, and make sure that you keep an eye on all the things A to Z Sports and 104.5 The Zone, because they're working together now, baby. And your boy's sitting in the middle of it and continuing to crank out this content because you know that I'm not tired yet. No!